Mr. Mark Carney is taking fresh steps to reposition Canada's trade relationships. He's in Germany this morning. On the same day, his U.S. trade minister is restarting talks with Washington.
Canada just orchestrated what Ottawa believed would be the ultimate energy coup, a partnership with Germany specifically engineered to challenge American control of European gas markets.
Mr. Mark Carney's European tour. He's in Latvia today after stops in Poland and Germany. It's part of Canada's push to diversify trade and economic partnerships amid a trade war with the U.S.
Prime Minister Mark Carney was welcomed to Berlin Tuesday morning by German Chancellor Friedrich Merz.
Prime Minister Mark Carney traveled to Berlin armed with ambitious commitments that supposedly would establish Canada as Europe's alternative energy source while sidelining American competitors.
Some allies right now as we're grappling with this situation with the United States and the trade war.
But what unfolded next exposed exactly why bold declarations without operational capability amount to nothing more than costly political spectacle.
Countries like Germany, Canada, partnership with the European Union can provide stability and prosperity for our citizens.
Mark Carney's spring arrival in Berlin wasn't simply routine diplomacy. The newly elected prime minister was executing what his administration considered a strategic masterstroke against American energy hegemony. Appearing alongside German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Carney revealed what he framed as revolutionary energy collaboration that would dramatically alter Atlantic commerce.
A new port, effectively in Churchill, Manitoba, which would open up enormous LNG plus other opportunities and other East Coast ports for those critical metals and minerals.
The central proposition? Canadian liquefied natural gas delivered to German facilities within 60 months, supported by $500 billion in infrastructure development. Carney described elaborate visions. Churchill, Manitoba reimagined as a premier LNG shipping center. Montreal's harbor operations expanding dramatically, and Canadian resources becoming Europe's go-to substitute for American energy. The media coverage suggested Canada had successfully established economic independence from Washington's influence.
$30 billion. What's a reasonable expectation in terms of trade between our two countries as we move forward?
Well, actually, I think there's still room.
Here's the glaring issue that everyone outside government circles immediately recognized. Canada operates exactly 0 Atlantic Coast LNG export facilities. Meanwhile, American suppliers were simultaneously offloading actual cargo at European ports and fulfilling genuine contracts at market-competitive rates.
Our government is in the process of unleashing $500 billion of investment in energy infrastructure, port infrastructure, particularly intelligence infrastructure as well, with AI.
This announcement's timing exposed motivations beyond simple commerce. The primary objective wasn't securing German energy access. Canada was broadcasting a calculated signal to Washington that it possessed the capacity and determination to pursue autonomous economic strategies that directly challenged American market positions. With escalating trade disputes and tariff warnings from the Trump administration, Carney required evidence that Canada maintained strategic alternatives beyond continental economic alignment.
Right. As you know, former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said there was no business case to sell liquefied natural gas to Europe. We are hearing a very different message from Prime Minister.
The underlying financial mathematics, however, painted an entirely contradictory picture. Recall that Justin Trudeau himself previously analyzed European LNG sales and determined no viable profit model existed. Those uncomfortable economic facts remained unchanged despite new political leadership. Transporting LNG across the Atlantic from hypothetical Canadian terminals would generate significantly higher costs compared to shipments from functioning American facilities that have operated for years.
Please explore a bit more what Canada can realistically actually offer to Germany and Europe, given the fact that ports on the East Coast and also pipelines are still lacking.
German journalists immediately posed the substantive questions. Which exact harbors would manage these deliveries? What pipeline networks would move the gas? How would Canada surmount its well-documented history of major construction initiatives becoming entangled in environmental litigation and bureaucratic obstacles lasting years?
Our government is in the process of unleashing $500 billion of investment in energy infrastructure, port infrastructure, particularly intelligence infrastructure as well.
Carney's answers depended heavily on vague commitments about activating capital and generating transformative prospects. Political vocabulary that resonates during announcements but leaves industry experts unconvinced. Simultaneously, American corporations weren't discussing hypothetical scenarios. They were physically filling tankers and executing agreements valued in the hundreds of billions.
A new port, effectively in Churchill, Manitoba, which would open up enormous LNG plus other opportunities and other East Coast ports for those critical metals and minerals.
The Churchill suggestion perfectly illustrated the gap between political vision and practical constraints. This northern Manitoba harbor confronts obstacles that financial resources alone cannot resolve. Dense ice formation completely halts maritime operations for 2/3 of each year, permitting merely 4 months of activity. German manufacturing demands reliable, continuous energy flows. A facility shuttered 8 months annually cannot deliver energy stability despite strong governmental backing.
There is a lot happening. It's the number one focus of this government is to build that infrastructure, and particularly infrastructure that helps us deepen our partnership with.
Making Churchill year-round operational would demand icebreaker vessels Canada lacks, plus ice control systems requiring billions in expenditure and extended construction periods. Additionally, the harbor's limited size prevents large commercial vessels from maneuvering properly, requiring specialized procedures that increase expenses and operational difficulty.
Port infrastructure, and some of the examples in the public domain will include from reinforcing and building on the Port of Montreal.
The Montreal enhancement confronted comparable hurdles. European forecasts indicate continental natural gas consumption will decline as Germany implements aggressive clean energy programs and conservation initiatives. What logic supports investing billions constructing export infrastructure targeting a market publicly committed to reducing fossil fuel purchases?
Is there enough demand globally for U.S. gas? And you can see that we expect to be able to continue growth to Europe in terms of exports, and Asia as well.
German representatives maintained courteous enthusiasm throughout Carney's visit, yet their behavior demonstrated alternative priorities. Prior to Carney's Berlin appearance, Venture Global had already secured a 2-decade supply arrangement providing substantial annual LNG volumes to a major German energy corporation. This represented concrete commercial obligations supported by functioning infrastructure and demonstrated delivery performance, not speculative commitments depending on future construction.
Trump personally secured a massive deal with the European Union, hundreds of billions of dollars worth of American oil and gas guaranteed over the next few years.
Additional American suppliers established comparable extended relationships. Another major LNG provider finalized a 15-year supply agreement with Germany's state energy entity earlier that year. These weren't conditional arrangements contingent upon building terminals that didn't exist. These were enforceable contracts with companies already transporting product to European destinations daily.
We will replace Russian gas and oil by significant purchases of U.S. LNG oil and nuclear fuels.
The Trump administration had structured comprehensive arrangements incorporating energy transactions into wider economic frameworks. The European Union committed to expanding American LNG acquisitions as part of a massive energy investment program intended to decrease Russian supply dependence. American energy sales carried both commercial and strategic defense value, granting them political significance beyond simple price competition.
Partner to Canada and vice versa. And we have so much in common. We share so many values, but we also have a joint interest in the diversification of our trade.
Germany's ambassador to Canada addressed this situation with precise diplomatic language, acknowledging substantial promise for Canadian LNG while stressing that German corporations ultimately base purchasing choices on commercial practicality. That careful terminology conveyed professional doubt. German energy purchasers assessed dependability, pricing, and shipment schedules, and Canadian proposals demonstrated no competitive strengths across those dimensions.
We know that Germany is buying millions of tons of LNG from the United States and Qatar, not Canada, as a result of really inaction by past governments on developing LNG.
The situation became particularly awkward for Ottawa given the operational gap. American LNG terminals throughout Gulf Coast regions linked to mature shipping channels, storage infrastructure, and distribution systems developed across decades. Multiple installations operate concurrently, with additional terminals activating before projected timelines and boosting American export volumes substantially. They provide demonstrated competence through continuous deliveries, rather than projected future performance.
The minerals could be a cornerstone in this improvement, but also our cooperation in other areas.
Canada's sole functioning LNG installation demonstrates the development timeframe challenges. The Kitimat facility delivered its inaugural shipment in mid-2025 following extended planning and construction phases. The project confirms Canada can complete significant energy infrastructure, but simultaneously reveals the extended duration execution demands. Developing Atlantic capability would mirror comparable patterns, with environmental reviews, indigenous community engagement, and layered regulatory authorizations consuming years before physical construction could commence.
To us as well. We have done our homework, we're working on the relevant import infrastructure in our ports, so we're getting ready for everything.
Within 90 days of the Berlin Declaration, the celebrated partnership had essentially disappeared from government statements. No subsequent announcements, no advancement updates, no revised schedules. Only conspicuous silence replacing earlier grand commitments. Major European energy corporations publicly stated they would maintain relationships with established American suppliers rather than risk resources on Canadian assurances lacking infrastructure foundation.
Lot of imports, because as we said in the beginning, the diversification, especially in LNG imports, is of relevance.
The complete reversal materialized when infrastructure investments Canada actually possessed continued addressing different objectives. The Cedar LNG initiative receiving substantial government financing targets Asian consumers via Pacific maritime routes, not European markets across the Atlantic. Canada's genuine competitive strengths exist in geographic proximity to Asian markets and established Pacific commerce relationships, not competing against American suppliers already controlling European markets.
And it's not yet with a timeline, and it's still not very concrete in terms of.
Canada attempted undermining American energy dominance through a German gas arrangement constructed entirely on commitments and political performance, only watching it disintegrate under economic reality's weight while American LNG vessels maintained their consistent Atlantic crossings. This wasn't merely unsuccessful trade policy, it demonstrated why operational infrastructure matters more than ambition in global energy commerce. Subscribe for additional analysis of international politics where the distance between declarations and reality reveals the authentic narrative.